Hello, happy Thanksgiving, and welcome to episode 147 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. My good friend Sarah Says is taking a break from the cranberry sauce and tryptophan to talk about Disneyland on the show today. The two of us will spend the next 2 weeks ranking every ride at Disneyland Resort, that's both Disneyland Park, and Disney's California Adventure. I'm introducing Sarah to the tier list. This is going to be loads of fun and should provide some fodder for friendly comments back and forth for anybody wanting to voice their opinions. Before we get started, it is Thanksgiving. This time of year can be really tough on some people, but I would love for all of us to take a few seconds and look over all the things for which we should be grateful. This podcast alone has given me friendships like the ones I have with my co-hosts Sarah and Marissa. The show even gives me the opportunity to continue broadcasting. I started in radio over a quarter of a century ago, and creating this type of content, and especially editing audio, is a passion of mine. Not only has Tall Guy Talks Travel given me the chance to keep those skills fresh, but I'm in charge of the topics now. I can be myself, and I don't have to worry if my boss thinks I should just hold the most popular opinions to be likable. Most importantly, I'm thankful for the differences we have been able to make in other people's lives. We've promoted fundraisers and raised awareness for LGBTQ+ organizations and dealing with chronic illness. Last year, I raised money and awareness in the fight against domestic violence through my pilgrimage in Ireland, which I was able to promote on this podcast. Earlier this year, we spent the month of March doing a drive to donate basketballs, soccer balls, and volleyballs to Boys and Girls Club of Central Florida. The fact that we have used this project to do good things has always been one of my proudest achievements. I'm so thankful for all of you who helped with that. Right now, Jeff Gordon, who's a popular member of Diz Twitter, is doing his annual collection for Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County. This is a place that directly assisted Walt Disney World cast members and Universal Orlando Resort team members during the park closures for the pandemic. They continue to help CMs and TMs as the prices for rent and groceries continue to rise in the Orlando area. This is so important, and I believe every $1 helps provide 3 meals. The link will be in the description to the podcast. If you can spare anything, please consider making a donation. One more thing very quickly. I want to make something very, very clear. Nobody has the right to insult, offend, or attack you. It doesn't matter if that person is family. In every situation, you have the right to stand up and walk out the door if it is for your own mental health. Your time is not owed to anybody who treats you poorly. This is especially important during the holidays. If you don't have family that you trust, you will one day discover a good found family. I promise you that. My DMs are always open for anyone who needs to talk to somebody. All right, let's start the fun stuff. Here's my good friend Sarah Says. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thanks, I'm happy to be here.
So this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I think this is the time to do it. One of those online tier lists, and we are going to rank all of the rides at DCA and at Disneyland. So this is not the most up-to-date tier list that I have in front of me, but we're going to try to do our best to add what isn't there, and we might skip some stuff if we don't consider it that important. There are a lot of shows involved in this, and I think we might just stick to rides. But if anybody doesn't know what a tier list is, basically what we're doing is the top tier is S tier. This is like the best of the best. You are in rarefied air here. This is your Michael Jordans and LeBron Jameses. Then we're going to have A, B, C, D, and F. Those are going to be pretty much self-explanatory. What we're going to try is to have the majority of the rides should be in this B and C range.
Okay.
By definition, most things are average. So we don't want to just load all of our favorite things up on S tier and say that it's so easy to get up there. So we're going to try to balance it out a little and see what we can get. But we want the major chunk to be B's and C's.
Okay. That's tough. I have a lot of favorites.
So we are going to start with Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
So I think Alice in Wonderland, this is a nostalgic ride. It has been around for quite some time. It's really, really good. Two-tiered, that's fun when you come out on the top level instead of being a normal, flat, dark ride. I think, and I want to get your opinion on this as we just start to find our rhythm in the tier list. I think this feels like a B to me. It's really, really good. It's definitely not having any struggles passing the class. So I actually think that even though this was just the first one because I started with the first one in alphabetical order, I think this is a good example because when I go to Disneyland, it is a ride that I definitely want to make sure I do each and every time. It holds memories for me. It's great. It's quality. It's something I would tell somebody to do if they were going to Disneyland for the first time, but it's not the reason I buy a Disneyland ticket.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I was kind of torn in between B and C because I don't feel like I absolutely have to ride it, but it is a fun one because it does have that, like you said, the 2-tier that coming out on it. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool and it's pretty unique. So I would probably say B.
Okay, and now to keep this from being all in alphabetical order, and I'm going to decide what is a ride based on just us having fun. Like, let's not split too many hairs here. Okay. But I am going to move over to Turtle Talk with Crush.
Ooh.
And I don't want to stick in alphabetical order, obviously, and I thought this would be a fun one to sort of show what I mean by a D attraction.
Rude.
I don't hate this at all. It's fun. It's definitely not for me. The purpose of this is for kids, but I don't think it's the most memorable. I think it's something that you basically just do to get out of the heat for a little bit or to get indoors and get off your feet.
That's fair. I can agree with D for that because I don't seek it out. I see the sign and I'm like, cool, but I don't ever seek it out. And like you said, I don't think it's not geared towards me. And it's a good thing to go in and get some AC.
So now I will let you sort of take the lead on this one now that we've done a couple and you're sort of seeing what I mean by a tier list.
Yes.
And we are going to do the Mark Twain.
Oh. Let me think about that for a minute. To be completely honest, I'd probably put that as a C just because I'm really indifferent to it. It's a good ride. People enjoy it. I don't seek it out, but it's not bad. I definitely think I'd go with the C because I'm kind of indifferent to it.
I feel like its iconic nature might make a case for B, but I think that I do agree that it should be a C. Just the experience of riding it is not as big of a deal as, like, if they ever tried to get rid of it, I would be horrified and angry. But riding it isn't all that exciting. It's more there for the pictures and to create that atmosphere. Whereas I think some of the other rides are more important when it comes to being something you need to do right away.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Let's go with something big. Let's do something that will have us thinking.
Okay.
Remember, we don't want to overload S tier, but obviously some rides will go there. So
there's 2 in my mind right now that I know the minute you say them, I don't even have to hesitate.
Okay, this one might be a tough one.
Okay.
Space Mountain.
Oh, that is a tough one. That was not even on my brain bank where I would put it.
I think that you could convince me that this should be an A tier all the way down to a C tier.
To be completely honest, I would probably put that as a B tier. I do really enjoy Space Mountain, especially the one in Disneyland Park, because it is the superior Space Mountain in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it doesn't jump into the forefront of my thoughts of I need to ride this like an A tier or an S tier would. So I'd say it's a B tier, and if I get over there to ride it, to me, it's a great ride, and I do enjoy it. But it's not, and I have to ride this, or my park experience will not be complete.
I have a lot of S and A tiers already in my head, so I can see putting that as a B. So that's fair. I do not mind that. Astro Orbiter.
F tier.
You know, I was wondering about an F tier.
For me, F tier.
No, I don't mind making it an F tier now when they have it down on the ground and it's in an awful location. It creates bottlenecks, and there's a better version of the same darn attraction. I definitely think that that is a worthy F tier, and you are getting no complaints from me.
All right.
Star Tours.
Star Tours, to me, I think we may disagree on this one, but I would put Star Tours on a B tier because I really enjoy Star Tours. I really enjoy it, and I do. Yeah, if I am going to be in Tomorrowland, I am going to ride Star Tours.
Well, of course, because there's nothing else to do in Disneyland's Tomorrowland, but that's but that's a problem with the land and not the ride being all that great.
No, I really do like Star Tours. I enjoy it. I want to ride it when I'm there, but it's kind of like Space Mountain, where if I'm in that area, I'm going to ride it. And but I'm not going to it's not going to ruin my thing. But I also don't think it's horrible, especially since they updated it. I think it's fun.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my case. I'm going to try to convince you that on our combined list, this should be C tier. And here's why.
Okay.
1, it is something that will make some people sick. It is not one of those rides that everybody can do. And I think now, with the repetitiveness of it being at both Hollywood Studios and Disneyland, combined with the fact that we now have 2 much better Star Wars rides, really one much better Star Wars ride, and a ride that we will discuss later as well, I think this is a C tier at best. Because there are a lot of things that are going to be going up on those top 3 tiers.
True.
One of those things, I would imagine, is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Ooh. Okay, so we're putting Star Tours on C tier then. Because I agree with what you said about those things. That yes, I can concede a C for Star Tours. Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh, that's tough.
I mean, I think that we have to admit that it's either an S or an A, right?
I think I'm going to go with A because I don't feel it's an S tier ride in my opinion, but I would definitely probably put it in an A.
I'm thinking of about 4 definite S tiers. So I think that when you're trying to talk about the absolute top pinnacle of Disneyland rides, you're probably only talking about 4 or 5, and I could see arguing that Pirates of the Caribbean is 6 or 7 on the list. So, okay, I thought it had a better chance of making S tier, but I think A tier is probably a really good spot for it.
In my mind for S that I feel are better. I mean, yes, it is truly iconic and it's a wonderful ride, but to me, there's other rides that I feel deserve S tier. Maybe if they still had the redhead, I would put it in S tier.
Oh, let's not get into that kind of stuff. Let's not start. Come on. We're just having fun.
They could have made her a
Okay.
strong, powerful woman. Okay.
Well, yeah, Red's there, but anyway,
True.
so here we go. Let us talk about, okay, where do I want to go? Let's go with a weird one. Let's go Enchanted Tiki Room.
Oh, dear God. If this was my father talking right now, he'd be like, F tier, F tier. He hates the tiki room. I'm going to say I do like the tiki room, but ultimately that I don't seek it out. I don't write it. I don't sit through it unless I'm really overheated or I really just need a blast of nostalgia. And all you hear the whole time is click, 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 click as they're singing. So I'm going with D tier.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was wondering if the fight should be between B and C tier. So I'm going to say let's put it in C tier.
I could agree with putting it in C tier. That's fine. I just feel like if it were like, yeah, C tier is fine. I can agree with C tier.
So the person who put together this list, one of the things that's bothering me a little bit is they use some of the ride photos from Walt Disney World. You can tell they just did a Google search for the ride photos on this, because here is one that we are talking about the Disneyland version, but they have a picture of the sign from Walt Disney World. We're going to talk about Mad Hatter Tea Party.
Is that what it's called in Disneyland?
Or the Mad Tea Party, I guess is what
okay,
it's called.
I'm like, is that what it's called in Disneyland? I haven't ridden that in years.
The teacups.
The teacups. I know what you mean. I don't like the teacups. I think it's fun to watch other people on it. I love how it's set up at Disneyland because it looks really cool, like a garden tea party, but I'm going with D tier. Solid D.
I'm going with D tier as well. If this was the Walt Disney World version, it would border on F. It might be D, but it would be closer to F. I do think that the iconic nature of the Disneyland version makes me think about putting it in C, but I'm still not putting it in C.
Yeah.
Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters.
This is a hard one for me because I absolutely adore it and I love this ride so much. I think it is so fun. But at the same time, I don't want to take up a ton of space at the top. So I'm going to put that one, in my opinion, I'd probably put that in B.
Okay, I'm going to make the argument for C that most things are average. Most things are in the middle. And
but it's
this
such a
is
fun
something.
Experience.
Okay, I'll let you. You
I
did
think
it.
it's so
You pushed
cute.
it up to D, or you pushed it up to B.
I love it. And I laugh hysterically riding that ride every time because it brings me so much joy.
I'm ready to get controversial because I have an opinion in my mind about this answer. What say you about Matterhorn bobsleds?
Oh, God. You mean the chiropractic nightmare?
So I'm just going to make my case right now.
Okay,
yes,
make your case.
It is beautiful, and I never want them to get rid of it. But that's exactly how I feel about the Mad Tea Party, and I will ride both of these the same amount of times in the future, and that is 0.
0. You know what? It's funny you say that because I was telling my sister that when we take my son to Disneyland that she'll be taking him on the Matterhorn because I'm never riding it again. Because I swear when we were there, I thought I broke my arm.
Well, I was too tall for it.
Fracture.
We had I had to get out because I couldn't get my legs into it. So I didn't even ride on the same vehicle as you because they just had to stop it as an emergency because I couldn't squeeze into it. And then they put me in the front, which was fine. But obviously it hurts. It's not a great ride. Keep it. I want it there forever. D tier.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. I fully agree with that.
Let's go back to Cars Land. Tow-Mater, whatever Tow-Mater's ride is called.
I've actually never ridden that, so I don't know how to score that one, to be completely honest.
To me, this is a C. It exists. It's a people-eating ride. It never has a long line, so that's going to help. Right. So I'm just going to put it as a solid C. It exists.
Okay. You know what? I will agree with that, having never ridden it. I'm actually looking at the Disneyland app right now to see how long the wait is for it. Oh, 10-minute wait.
You need some things like that. You need 10-minute waits every once in a while. I don't know, Mike and Sully to the rescue.
That ride is so cute. It's so fun, but ultimately I'd put it at a C.
Yeah, and we don't have to debate these a lot. Like, sometimes a C is just a good ride. That's what you want. Yeah, you want a whole bunch of C's.
Right now, it's 5-minute walk on.
I think that's probably where we're going to have this next one as well, Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, put it at a C. It's a cute ride. It's there. It's fun.
I'm a sucker for a dark ride, so I'm always going to pretty much want it to be around a C, but that is a good one. Let's try to find something that will be a little more polarizing one way or another. Let's try to get something that isn't in this C area. Okay. And I'm going to go with Jungle Cruise.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's tough because that is iconic. That is an iconic ride. And it's a good ride, in my opinion. I'm going to have to go with A tier.
I'm going to go with A tier only because we're talking Disneyland. And Disneyland has all of those aspiring actors who make fantastic Jungle Cruise skippers. It always reminds me of the Weird Al song Skipper Dan. And it's just so good. I do not really like the Walt Disney World version anymore. I think I have outgrown that, but the Disneyland version still has a special place in my heart. They have changed the name of this ride now, but from what I understand, it is basically still the same ride, and that's Gadget's Go Coaster or Chippendale's Gadget Coaster, or whatever. I love Gadget as a character.
Yes.
My wife, who is a scientist, loves Gadget as a character, and I am so happy that this ride exists. Disneyland needs things like this. These types of rides, like the Barnstormer over in Walt Disney World, are good at giving kids something to do, maybe testing themselves as to whether they can go a step up to some of these other roller coasters. I am going to say, this might be a controversial one, solid B tier.
I was actually thinking the same thing, is B tier. I think that's a really good one. And I'm really hoping, I don't know, I'm assuming it was just an aesthetic change and it's still the same roller coaster.
They didn't have enough time to make it anything more or less intense, right?
Yeah. I'm assuming it's still the same coaster. They just the overhaul was on what it looks like. So, and the name. So yeah, I agree. It's a good B tier.
It is time to address not the elephant in the room. We'll talk about him later. But the toad in the room.
Oh, snap.
And where are we going to put Thaddeus J. Toad and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride?
This is a tough one because I am not as diehard on Mr. Toad as you are, but I also have Toad all the time, and you have Toad when you come visit.
Yeah, I only have it when I go to Disneyland, and you go to Disneyland more than I go.
Yes.
This is wrapped up in a lot of nostalgia because we used to have it in Walt Disney World. Yep. And this is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
This is going to be my case that I'm going to make. The Fantasyland Dark Ride is such an iconic experience in Disney. You have to do the Fantasyland Dark Rides. It's one of the first things that you think of when you think of a Disneyland vacation. You have Peter Pan's Flight, which is so popular, so ubiquitous, always has a huge long line. Snow White is a little different. It's good. People like it, but it definitely relies heavily on the intellectual property to which it is attached. Same as Pinocchio's, which might even be a little boring for a Fantasyland Dark Ride. I am going to make my case for S tier because it is, in my humble opinion, the best ride in its category. The Fantasyland Dark Ride. And it does not rely on an IP that everybody knows and loves. The outside is so photogenic, so gorgeous. Like, it is a beautiful outside
Toad
show.
Hall.
I'm making the case for S tier, and I'm standing by it.
To be completely honest, in my brain, I put it at like an A or B tier, but I'm not as diehard as you are for Mr. Toad. But because I'm probably going to have a controversial S tier coming up, I will give this one to
You're
you.
going to want to, you're playing politics here. I like it. I like it.
So
that
is
is
give Mr.
good.
Toad the S tier.
I'm worried that I spent all of my S tier clout that I'm going to need in a little bit for Mr. Toad, but we will find out where we are there. How about we just go to Pinocchio's daring journey right now?
You know, I was a Pinocchio kid. Like, I loved Pinocchio growing up. Loved Pinocchio. But I am going to have to put him at a C, if not a D, because that ride needs an update.
A C is exactly where I put it. I love a good dark ride. I want to do Pinocchio's daring journey when I go to Disneyland. I'll do it. It will not be the highlight of my day. It will not be the highlight of my hour because I'll either do Snow White or Mr. Toad right after it. So let's move right into Snow White. Podcast trivia, the first ride Sarah and I ever rode together, the new version of Snow White. It used to be the Scary Adventure. Now it's Enchanted Journey.
I think something like that.
Sure.
I don't remember. Hold on. Please hold. Let's see. Okay, Disneyland app. Give me the lowdown.
But this still has that iconic feel that Scary Adventure had, even though they did
Snow White's
make
Enchanted
changes.
Wish.
Enchanted Wish.
Yes. Which, by the way, Mr. Toad's is closed for refurbishment.
Yeah, I know. Could you imagine how much you'd be hating your life if you spent all that money on a Disneyland vacation and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was closed?
Oh, no kidding, right? It's weird, though, because Alice and Peter are open, but I thought that whole building was closing at the same time because they're all connected. Who knows? Okay, so wait. Snow White's Enchanted Wish. I have to think about this one for a minute. Got to think about it. Because I immediately want to think about putting it in C tier, but it was such a good refurbishment that I kind of want to move it up to B.
That is where I have it.
At B?
I have it as a B tier. That's where I slid it in while we had the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I think I agree with that because I was thinking and I'm like, but it's too good, I feel like, for C tier now that it's been refurbished. If it was like still the old school one, I'd be like solid C. But yeah, I think B tier is a good place for it.
Now, I think this is one where we are going to make people mad, but we are probably going to agree between the two of us. And I think a lot of people aren't going to like what we're going to have to say. But since we've been going through Fantasyland Dark Rides, it's time to talk about Peter Pan's Flight.
Oh, God.
And I think one of the things you have to take into consideration when ranking a ride, for example, we have the Mark Twain as a C. Part of the reason is because you know you're not going to have to wait in line to do it. You're going to get on the next boat every time. So wait time does play a part in this.
Yeah.
I feel, oh boy, people are going to be mad.
I know people are going to be mad because
I'm going to have Peter Pan as a C tier because it is a pain if you want to rope drop it. That's the only way. You're not going to wait like an hour for this ride. Yep. And I don't want to rope drop a Fantasyland Dark Ride. I'm sorry. Like, that's not worth it to me. So I think this is going to be a C tier. I think this is going to be our first controversial one with other people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If we were basing it on line and wait time alone, I'd put it at an F. But I put it on a C.
I am wondering if we have somebody joining Thaddeus J. Toad in the S tier.
Oh, I'm interested to hear who's next.
Haunted Mansion.
S tier. Solid S tier, unless it has the overlay.
You know what?
Then
I didn't even think of that.
F tier. Yes. Solid
you know
S tier when it is OG.
No, here's the deal. I already had it in S. Like, I placed it in S for us to start the conversation. But now I am going to make the case that it is down for a good portion of the year. And it is a refurbishment that even if you like the refurbishment, I think makes it a lesser ride. I'm going to say the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay of Haunted Mansion makes Haunted Mansion at Disneyland an A tier.
I hate that one. I hate it.
But you understand what I'm saying.
But no, I understand what you're saying, and it does.
And you're the one who brought it up too, so you can't blame
me. Otherwise, it would be a solid S tier. Like if we were talking about Walt Disney World, S tier all the way. But yeah, no, as much as it breaks my heart to bump it down to an A tier, it has to be done because you're right. It's closed a huge portion of the year. And then it's changed to something completely different for half of the year when it's not. So there's only like an itty bit of time that it is the OG Haunted Mansion anymore.
Wow, are we going to make some people upset? We got Toad in S tier and Haunted Mansion in A tier.
Which is funny because I'm totally rocking my Haunted Mansion sweatshirt right now. But notice there is no Jack and Sally.
That's where we'll leave things off this week. We still have plenty of rides to rank next week. If you aren't already, please make sure to become a subscriber on the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Every day in December, I will have either a video, vlog, or podcast. I have really dug up a lot of interesting stuff that I recorded without ever thinking about YouTube. I'll also be showing you all of the decorations around Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando Resort. I am going to be a very busy guy over the next 6 weeks because I really want to continue to grow the channel into 2024. Like I said, Sarah will be back next Thursday to continue our Disneyland tier list. Until then, have a great week and a happy Thanksgiving.